So, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time that you're watching this. This is an impromptu of sorts Premier League preview show for this week. The 20 games will start on the 24th of February 2023. Tereak's unwell, um, so we are doing this without him. I'm currently talking to absolutely nobody as this is a pre-record to let you behind the curtain. So this is one of those bizarre instances when I'm just talking into a microphone, into the internet for one day for you all to see it. But as I said, this is the Tereak Talks preview show. He has left me in charge. As I've got no one to bounce off, no comments to talk about, this could be quite a quick one. But if you wouldn't mind, guys, for those of you that do watch this religiously every week, like I know a lot of you do, we do really, really appreciate it. It means an awful lot to me and to Tereak. It means a lot to me because this is nothing to do with me. I just hijacked it once and kept coming back. So, yeah, if you could like and share and subscribe and do all that good stuff, that would be great. As I say, this is one of those strange ones where I am just talking into a microphone with no one here to even listen to or talk to. So we'll crack straight on into it. And we'll start off this week with my team. Starts off the week's entertainment for football with Fulham versus Wolves. And if you are new here, Tereak Talks, who's the better looking younger one on this preview show that we do normally every week, is an Arsenal fan, and I am a Wolves fan. The last 5 meetings between these two teams does show 2 draws for Fulham, but 3 wins for Wolves, believe it or not. I was at the draw at the start of the season when the sun was out, and I didn't think that Wolves were the worst team I've ever watched play in the Premier League, as I have thought at times this year. The last 5 games for both teams are as follows. Wolves have won 2 and lost 3, and Fulham are on the back of a brilliant run currently with 3 wins and 2 draws. So this could make or break my weekend. Fulham in fantastic form, and Wolves coming on the back of yet another toothless performance. Not the first time we've said that this season on this channel. Fulham doing a great smash and grab job last week against Brighton, which is why I think Tereak has gone for a 2-1 win this week for the home team. I'm struggling here with my heart and my head. My head is saying one team is flirting with relegation, that being Wolves, and the other flying high as a top 7 team. So realistically, my head is saying Fulham should win this, but my heart with Wolves and the improvements under J-Lo, under Lopetegui are real. They're not false dawns. We have seen Wolves play so much better since the Christmas break and since the World Cup. Wolves are definitely more dynamic under him. We've tightened up at the back, and we are creating chances like we did last week against Bournemouth. But we are back to pre-World Cup with Wolves last week. We've just not been able to put the ball in the back of the net. But Tereak has gone for a 2-1 Wolves win, Fulham win. I'll have to get that right, 2-1 Fulham win. However, I am going to stick with my heart a little bit and go for a 1-1 on this one. But I will say, for those that don't know what we do here, if you are new, what we do is myself and Tereak, we give our predictions. Guys in the comments afterwards or in the Discord, all will be in the links down below when this goes out. They share what they think, and we put it together in a league. And I believe T is going to give out prizes towards the end of the season, after the season's finished, for multiple places, multiple prizes. He hasn't decided exactly yet, or hasn't shared exactly yet what that's going to be. So after the video has finished, or I think in fact, this will be a pre-recording during the video, you can comment down below with what you think your scores are going to be, and comments in on the videos afterwards really, really do help push this channel out and get us to the next milestone, which is 700 subscribers. And I truly believe for this channel, once it gets to 1,000, this may become a more permanent feature of Tereak's life. He's very good at it. So yeah, please support him if you can. Now, on to the League Cup or Carabao Cup, but we're not sponsored by them yet. So I'm going to call it the League Cup final. We have Newcastle United versus Man United. Statement game maybe for these two teams. Both of them probably thinking that they are a season ahead, maybe where their respective fans thought they were going to be at the start of the season. Many United fans are still denying they're in a title race, despite the fact that you are Man United fans, and Newcastle fans, of course, with the huge buyout that they've had recently, of course, knowing that they are onto better things, you would imagine, with that money in place. Newcastle, of course, are going to be without Nick Pope, whose 20-odd years of goalkeeping training kicked in far too well last week when he decided not to kick the ball, but handled it at Mo Salah's feet instead of either just getting rid or just letting the ball go past him. Excellent shot stopper, but I think we can see in that moment, if we extrapolate it out, probably you can see why he's at a current pretender for the top four in Newcastle rather than maybe being the keeper of an established top four team. But I think both will come for both at Newcastle, I'd imagine, with the investments in going, the work Eddie Howe's done, and of course, where the rest of the league are. Man United, on the back of a convincing win against Leicester last week, Marcus Rashford continues to this run of ridiculous form, goal-scoring form, and continues to steal Neves' celebration. I mean, public announcement, Marcus, you've got everything going right now. Everyone knows how lovely a bloke you are. Everyone knows how good you are at football. Let us have something. That is not your celebration. Newcastle's keeping woes, I think, is probably what's spurred Tereak to go for a 2-0 Man United win. I think I'm going to go for a similar result in the fact that it is the exact same result. I'm going for a Man United win, but maybe going against what Newcastle have done this season. And I'm going to see them letting in 3 goals in this game. I'm actually going for a 3-1 Manchester United win in the League Cup final. Now, guys, do you think that's way off? Let me know in the comments afterwards as we move on to the next one. And also, I would genuinely love Man United fans to realise that they are actually in a title race. Now, talking of title races, we're going to go to the current top of the league team. I'll say it because Tereak's not here. Arsenal, after last weekend, back on top, only missing the top spot for, 5 calendar days. What a season they're having. They're playing against Leicester at, I was going to say Filbert Street then, which is going way, way back at the King Power Stadium. Their last 5 meetings, I think, read really well for you Gooners out there, and there's a lot of them in the TTF community with 4 wins for Arsenal and just a 1 win for Leicester in the last 5 games. This will be the 150th meeting, believe it or not, between these two teams. Arsenal's form, they are currently still in the midst of the worst form of their season so far, but that win last week, an important win, which I'll talk about after I've done the stats, is key. Leicester, their form there for you to see: 3 wins, a draw, and a loss. Now, when we talk about Leicester and Arsenal, let's just start. I'm going to start by addressing Arsenal fans of other teams, for whatever reason, blind to what this Arsenal team are right now, whatever biases you hold, whatever chips you carry on your shoulders. Last week's win against Villa was exactly what teams full of winners do, coming back from behind not once but twice in a game in the Premier League, away from home, plugging away, ending up scoring, granted, a lucky goal on the back of Martinez's head, but goals scored in the extra time that were caused by a team so desperate to hold on to a win and then a draw that they wasted time, especially Martinez himself wasted so much time. That was actually their Achilles heel at the end, with goals being scored in that time, which wouldn't have been there, I think, if Villa had played that match without that sort of gamesmanship. Whether you win the league or not this year, for me, this Arsenal team is built different to those of recent years gone by. Now, you can remember the Invincibles. I do. Probably still one of my favourite football teams to watch. And at that point, Tereak wasn't in my life, didn't have any Arsenal leanings other than I loved Ian Wright as a kid. But just remember the Invincibles. Don't compare them. There's a reason that the Invincible seasons only happened, once, twice in the last 40, 50 years around the world in football. And to be 2 points clear of Man City with a game in hand. And it's this Man City team with the new and improved Haaland up front, with Pep, all the money that they've got at their disposal. I mean, the money that we believe, allegedly, is against FA and FFP rules. For Arsenal to be where they are right now, 2 points clear with a game in hand, is a spectacular achievement. And I don't think anyone should try and dumb this down or play this down, whether you're a Gooner or not. And there's been a lot of chat on different channels. I'm sure on Twitter, I'm not on social media, but I hear it through Tereak that people are trying to downplay this team, and I don't get it. I don't get it. You don't get to where you are at this point of the season by luck, and the fact that Arsenal are where they are is not luck. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant season regardless. And just quickly, if we touch on Leicester continuing in their Jekyll and Hyde season again, losing last week and looking completely and utterly outclassed for me in nearly every department. I'm not one to criticise players because, let's face it, look at me and look at them. They are class athletes, performers, but Danny Ward has got to be the worst goalkeeper in the Premier League this season. I would be very shocked to believe that another goalkeeper at Leicester wouldn't be better placed to play than him right now. And the fact that Leicester never replaced the leadership and the ability of Kasper Schmeichel at the start of the season, honestly believe that's costing them probably 3 or 4 places on their current league position right now. Both me and T have gone for Arsenal wins in this game. Tereak going for a 2-1 win away from home, and I'm going for a slightly more convincing 2-0 win for Arsenal away from home. So that's that game, and we're going to move on now, I believe, to the team second in the league, the team that were first for a brief few days. Bournemouth versus Man City is the next game. Only the 19th ever meeting between these two teams, and when you are putting your predictions in the chat or in the comments later on, be aware that Bournemouth, in all of their time playing Man City, which is not very many, like I say, this will be the 19th time, they have never beaten Man City in any period of history. So the last 5 meetings isn't a surprise when it's 5 losses in a row for Bournemouth. Bournemouth's form, huge win for them last week against my team, against Wolves. They have drawn 2, lost 2 and won 1 in the last 5. And Man City with a draw there against Nottingham Forest. This doesn't include the draw against Leipzig, which in real time happened yesterday. I haven't had time to update it. So realistically for them, it's 2 draws, 2 wins and a loss in their last 5 games. Now, Bournemouth, for me, it was a bit of a smash and grab last week, watching the game in full that I have. With, of course, it being against my team at the Golden Palace last week. It stopped their rot. It did get them out the bottom 3 for the first time in several weeks for them. But I didn't see anything in that game to make me think that this is the start of any kind of run or anything that will ultimately arrest their slide. I still predict them for relegation. I felt like their start to the season was a false position based on playing some teams at the right times. And for instance, the game against Wolves at Bournemouth was a 0-0. It was Gary O'Neill's first game in charge when they played basically a back 9 and held on against a very poor Wolves team at that point as well. And I feel that points and wins like that for them at the start of the season, for me, I still don't see anything that's going to stop them going down this season, unfortunately. And the fact that a toothless Wolves attack like Wolves had last week still carved out a good few chances, I think says maybe more about their defence maybe getting a bit lucky last week rather than it being sort of a a rearguard action. And I can't see a City team on the back of a what would feel like a loss to them in the draw against Nottingham Forest, not being able to break that Bournemouth defence down. Man City, of course, on the back of their draw, as I said, against Leipzig in midweek, and then Forest, of course, last weekend. But I don't think we need to get this twisted. Forest set their stall out from minute one. They were going to defend for their lives. And if for a slip from Foden, a couple of snatch chances from Haaland, and of course that big miss where, for whatever reason, he's decided to do a sidewinder volley instead of just tapping it in, City would have walked away with not just a win, but a comfortable win. But it's important to note that they didn't. Their defence, we've said it every week, and we've even said it in pre-season, that is still not where it should be. Pep, the football weirdo or pervert, as I crowned him a few weeks ago, is doing his crazy things that he can do from time to time, trying to turn Bernardo Silva into some kind of right winger, left centre back, left back, defensive midfielder hybrid in games, was for me culpable for some of the reason that Forest got their goal. I think match of the day, Micah Richards did a great job breaking down. Bernardo Silva doesn't go when he needs to close down, because as a midfielder, he didn't need to engage. His brain thinks he doesn't need to engage when he did, but as a defender, you'd be in there straight away. And from there, everyone's sort of caught out of position. I think you can see that the defence personnel isn't where it needs to be, and I think the ethos that Pep wants with this defence, with Haaland in the team, is still not there either, because realistically, Haaland's not defending from the front either. That's not his forte. That's not what he's good at yet, but maybe something he will get better at. Now, for this one, both me and T are aligned again in thinking this is going to be a City win. Tereak has gone for a 2-0 City win, but I'm going for a statement. I'm going for a statement win here, a 4-0 to Manchester City. That's my thoughts on this game. Guys, let me know what you think in this game as we move on to who have been Man City's biggest protagonists for the last few years, and I think is a huge reason for their current sticky patch, is because I think 4-5 seasons of chasing the league, chasing this Man City juggernaut with all their money and resources, have really caught up with Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool. But as I take a quick sip of coffee, we're going to move on now to Crystal Palace versus Liverpool. The last 5 meetings isn't great for you eagle-eyed football fans out there, guys. If you aren't subscribed to Eagle-Eye Football, it's a predominantly Palace-based channel that are big supporters of Tereak Talks. There's a lot of crossovers. Get involved. They are on the back of 4 losses out of the last 5 games to Liverpool, with the 1 draw. Palace draw specialists this year, I think it would be safe to say, with 4 draws and just the 1 loss in the last 5 games, which for a mid-table Premier League team, which is what I wish my team currently were, is exactly the kind of form you'd rather see than a couple of wins and loads of losses. Liverpool, that loss there is the big loss that I'll touch on afterwards, the 5-2 loss to Real Madrid, but they are on the back of 3 losses and 2 wins. So for the Palace-Liverpool game, I think we'll start with Palace because they are the home team, but I think I say this with all due respect, probably not the team that most neutrals would want to start with. Palace continue to draw everything in sight. Insert your own artist joke there. And without Zaha, they're back to sort of lacking the cutting edge up front that we worry about when Wilf's not around. Eze, Elise, all of those young up-and-coming stars are still very much that young, up-and-coming and very raw. I think we've seen Eze has been benched in recent weeks by Patrick Vieira. We've seen Elise whipping in free kicks against Man United, dragging out draws from nowhere, showing his class, but still few and far between at the moment. I think the consistency that Zaha has had for Palace as a winger, as a player playing for, and I mean this with all due respect, as a man who follows a team of similar ilk right now, a mid-level Premier League team. Probably too good for Palace, but maybe not quite good enough elsewhere to be the main man. His consistency has been absolutely incredible. And I think they're going to be safe for another season. And at some point, Palace probably need to roll the dice on a few more bigger name players, maybe, or keep trying their hand at picking up the young talent. But they're absolutely fine. They're a good team, know what they are, and have a very good and up and coming manager that I think is commandeering a lot of respect, and still the job he's done to replace an aging team with a young team and a Roy Hodgson team that was based on start every game with a draw, you're always going to get a point. They're very much more interesting than they were under Roy Hodgson. But let's talk about Liverpool. Liverpool, I think the question on everyone's lips is this Klopp done? Is Klopp done? I think his comments, his demeanour, the laughing that he did on the touchline after the 5-2 loss. Now, I watched the highlights with my little boy, Jacob, who's 8, the morning after. And he looked up at me and said, why is Klopp laughing? Like, what's funny? They're losing 5-2. He didn't get it. And I think when I tried to explain it to him, I couldn't explain it either. It's the laugh, sort of the manic laugh that's sort of like, oh, we're here again. It's the same old problems. What do I do? And maybe this is something I can talk to through with T or some of the TTF, maybe on the Discord or in another stream another time. But has there been, in Klopp's successful years at Liverpool, an over-reliance on individual match winners and individual brilliance to prop up Klopp's tactics? It's a genuine question. Maybe answer in the comments or give me your thoughts on Liverpool in the live stream if it's going out live. Is that too much of a bold statement? Is Salah's match-winning ability masked maybe the lack of cohesion at times between Liverpool strikers? It wasn't that long ago we had Mane and Salah. Do they even like each other? Comments being thrown around. Did Mane's ability, Salah's ability to win a match almost single-handedly mask the fact that Klopp couldn't bring them together? Genuine question. We're really interested to hear people's opinions on that. For me, I think we're starting to see the cracks in Klopp's tactics. The gegenpress doesn't work with the midfield that they have right now. We don't need to talk realistically about the Liverpool midfield again. Anyone watching the Premier League this year with a semblance of football knowledge would know that midfield in its current guise is not good enough for a bottom sixth side, in truth. I think, and I always reference my team because I know them the most, Wolves. If my team's midfield is 3-4 times better than the midfield of Liverpool, who last year were 2 games away from winning an unprecedented 4 titles, is nuts to say. It's nuts to think on paper that a team very much in a relegation fight has a midfield that a team that finished second last year, got into the Champions League final, got into both domestic cup finals, wasn't that far away from winning the league, would crave to have is crazy. And a genuine question there, I'll say it again for the TTF to comment on it in the comments or in the live chat or in the Discord. Is Klopp done? Is this the end of the line for him? Unless there's some crazy comeback in that Madrid game, is Klopp going to see out this season and that 7-year thing come back? And am I being too simplistic to think that the over-reliance on the match winners that Liverpool have in that squad, such as Salah, Mane in the past, Firmino in the past, Trent right now, Fabinho to be able to mop everything up, Virgil van Dijk dropped off a cliff, but until very recently, a lot of people were saying the best centre-back that the Premier League's ever seen, barring maybe Rio Ferdinand. Am I going too far to think that maybe Klopp's tactics have been overshadowed maybe and helped by individual brilliance? Now in this game, I see it being a 1-1. I see Palace continuing to do what they do best, and that's draw. But Tereak has actually gone for goals in this game, and he's gone for a 3-2 Liverpool win. Now, we'll move on now to a London derby here. Spurs versus Chelsea. I'll talk about the teams in a moment. Let's just do the stats and figures that you guys may or may not like, but I like doing. Last 5 meetings reads well for Chelsea. Unbeaten in 5 against Spurs, with 3 losses and just a 1 draw. And for Spurs, their current form is 3 wins and 2 losses. And for Chelsea, it is 2 losses and 3 draws. That form for Spurs doesn't look right, so don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure they lost last week. No, they won. They beat West Ham, didn't they, last week? So ignore me. They're just so up and down sometimes. I forget if they're on an up or if they're on a down. 2 weirdest teams in the Premier League for me this year. These 2 London-based teams. Chelsea, they look so bad in front of goal. They make Wolves, Southampton, Everton look almost clinical. How Sterling didn't score 2-3 goals last weekend, I've got no idea. We've got a manager in Graham Potter that had his glow up at the start of the season when he was brought in, trying to mesh this team of players together. We've got players from the old regime. We've got players from the new money. And Todd Bowley being brought in don't seem or look like Potter players. Although, realistically, I say that now, are they? Because Potter, in all of his time, but especially in Brighton, was all about picking up those players from elsewhere and making them look good. The difference is with Chelsea is they're picking up players that are maybe one step further along than where Brighton do. But they are still realistically Potter-type signings, young, need a lot to be worked into it. Tactics need to be worked into them. But there's just a bigger price tag on the end of them. But either way, we have all of these players. We've got players from the Abramovich regime, players brought in under Bowley, the youth that flourished under Frank Lampard briefly, and Potter looks like he's floundering. And if you don't know, you'll soon know that our thoughts on Potter on this channel for both myself and Tereak is that we think he's a brilliant coach, a brilliant manager, but he may be lucky to see out this season right now with where they are, with the owner that they have and how quick he is to take action. Whether he sees this season out or not at Chelsea, I don't see him being there for very much longer. But I have no doubt that Potter will move on to things better, maybe find a better fit for him personally, a better fit for his philosophy. I have more faith in Potter's ability to do better after Chelsea than for Chelsea to do regardless. This Chelsea team are a basket case of a team, and Spurs aren't much better. I believe, looking at a quick roundup that I looked at, Spurs, I think, are going to be without Conte this weekend as he's still recuperating. But the last time he wasn't there, of course, they did win. They're consistently inconsistent, and without Bentancur in the midfield, they could be lacking some impetus in the midfield, which I think could be taken into consideration when you're thinking about your predictions afterwards or during the video. Concerns like we always have about Man City, we have always had with Spurs. Their defence still very shaky. We saw without Romero how poor they were against Leicester a couple of weekends ago. With him back, there will be an improvement. But both myself and Tereak, who make our predictions separately, have both individually gone for a 1-1 in this game. So, as I always say, or as I've always said in this, let me know if you think that is going to be a draw, or do you see there being a difference maker in that game, and whether or not this is the game that Chelsea turn up for, because I think they've been knocking at the door but not quite getting it open. Moving on from a mid-table clash to a definitely a bottom of the league clash here. The last 5 meetings here, as we look at Leeds versus Southampton, there are 2 draws, 2 wins, and a loss in this last 5 games for Leeds, with Leeds picking up 2 wins out of the last 5 against these 2 teams. Leeds' form, not looking great, definitely relegation form when you look at it there, with 3 losses, a draw and a win. Southampton picking up that very surprising, or maybe not that surprising win, depending on your point of view on Chelsea last week without Nathan Jones. And of course, have brought in their new manager this week, Javier Garcia, I believe. Their last 5 games are 3 losses and 2 wins. Now, for this Leeds-Southampton game, I mean, cliches aplenty here. This is definitely a relegation 6-pointer. We've got a huge game down here at the bottom of the league. Leeds looked rudderless and without purpose for me last weekend. Long balls to Bamford with no support around him. Aimless balls out-angled wide to Nonto and Somerville to Chase to do nothing with. And I think there's a very good breakdown that's been done either on Sky or the BBC, which basically just shows how many pumped-up balls were coming from sort of Jack Harrison and other midfielders in and around Bamford that were either impossible to control or, as I say, aimless for quite impressive-looking wingers to chase. Southampton did the double over Chelsea last week, and it's the first time they've done that since 1988. For me, I think those results are still outliers for their season, and I think maybe says more about Chelsea than it does about them. We know that they went in for Jesse Marsh. That didn't work, so they've gone for another Premier League manager that didn't quite cut the grade, but again, at Watford, who does. I see both of these teams, though, for me, being bottom, and the bottom 3 at the end of May, along with Bournemouth that I talked about earlier. But I am going for Leeds to edge this. Maybe the Ellen Road crowd gets them a goal. I'm going for a 1-0 win in this game. However, T has gone for a 1-1, which, with my Wolves head on, would be probably what I'd like, because that just keeps both of those teams below us. Moving on now to another team flirting with relegation, Everton versus Aston Villa. Now, the last 5 meetings for these teams is lovely reading if you're a Villa fan. Villa have won 4 out of the last 5 and are unbeaten in the last 5, with Everton only picking up 1 point out of the last 5 times these 2 teams have met. However, Everton's form, definitely an upturn since Sean Dyche has come in, and I think their performances, you would say, is also an upturn, but still failing to pick up maybe points in draws where they'd need to. 2 wins and 3 losses in the last 5. And as we look at Everton and Aston Villa, I think we can say about Villa last week, as I said, there's a lot of gooners in the TTF. We know that Villa did play well against a good Arsenal team last week. Trouble is definitely brewing, though, isn't it, between the manager and the captain? I think when Emery came in, there was already talk that he wasn't a big fan of Martinez and the, how do you say this politely, character that he is. And I'd be very surprised if Martinez is there next season. If you haven't seen his post-match comments after the Arsenal game, Emery basically throws him under the bus and says, I've never wanted a goalkeeper to go up front because that can exactly happen. The Martinelli goal, a great pass from Fabio Vieira to spot him. So don't go up there. The worst that can happen is what happened last week. And you're out of the game completely then for the last 5 minutes. I think we'll be very, very lucky, I think, to see Emi Martinez still at Villa next season if they continue to clash, especially as Villa and managers and captains have not had a great history in recent years, of course, with Gerrard also fallen out with Tyrone Mings at the start of the season as well, lest we forget. Villa's defence, I think, despite a good performance, still looked a bit leaky from what I've seen. But with Ollie Watkins, who's a very streaky player that I said last week, currently in one of his hot streaks, I think there's more than enough chance of a goal. And that was a very good goal he scored last week with the step overs and taking it left and popping it in past a good defence and a good goalkeeper. There's more than a good chance for me that they score in this game. For Everton to survive, they need to make Goodison a fortress. To stave off relegation, they need to do what Dyche has been known to do, which is to make home difficult to be at. It's not pretty at times, but it's effective and has been effective for several years. Everton played twice this week due to the rearranged fixtures from earlier on in the season, and I reckon they'd snap your hand off for 2 points in these games. But for me, I only see them picking up 1 point, and it's in this game. I've gone for a 1-1, but Tereak has actually backed Dyche to pick up a win in this game and his boys to go home 1-0 winners. As we move on to another team with another manager potentially in trouble, West Ham versus Nottingham Forest. Last 5 meetings between these two teams go back to the Championship, so I'll save them for those listening in, but I wouldn't take them into consideration when you're making your predictions. 2 wins for Forest and 3 wins for West Ham. West Ham's form, 2 wins, 2 draws and a loss, and Forest in the last 5 games, of course, that impressive draw last week at Man City is on the back of 3 losses and a win. Now, West Ham and Forest is something that Tereak did send me some notes on beforehand, because he's picking Forest to win this game 2-1 away from home, and he then says that that's curtains for David Moyes. Based on current form, Forest are the informed team, defended very well last week despite the fact that they lost 17 centre-backs in one action the week before, losing Willy Bolly and I think it was McKenna, was it, to the same injury in the same defensive possession. But they looked really good defensively against the reigning champs last week, in terms of they took their one chance and they did what all teams need to do against those teams that are so much better equipped than them. They took their chances, they rode their luck, and they put their bodies and other body parts on their line, particularly Keylor Navas, who was asked to count them, not just rub them, when he did 1 save last week. West Ham spent money, backed David Moyes, and they're struggling. They're really struggling still. I'm going for a draw in this game, 0-0, but I still think that's enough to say goodbye to David Moyes. I think despite picking up a point, which is what I've got them doing, I still think that he's going to go the same way as what Tereak's predicted, with a loss, and it will be the end of his second reign at West Ham. So the Hammers will say goodbye again to David Moyes, and maybe say it until they need him again, maybe to pick up a hat-trick. Now, just quickly, we are going to look at the 2 midweek games that are rearranged. So, guys, if you're not up to date with where you need to be for FPL, there are teams not playing this week who would have been the Newcastle Man United games and their respective opponents, but Arsenal and Everton and Liverpool and Wolves are both still playing. Now, for Arsenal-Everton, T has gone for a 2-0 Arsenal win. I'm going for a 1-0 Arsenal win, a reverse of what happened at Goodison Park. And both me and T for Liverpool and Wolves have gone for a 1-1 draw in that. And I would snap your hand off for that right now. I'd snap your hand off for both 1-1s that are predicted for Wolves this week. Right, so that is all of the games for this week. Now, I apologise, that is a lot of me just talking. I don't think I've got the most listenable voice in the world, so please bear with me. We do commit to do these every week for you. We do have the Predictions League going, which is, of course, another reason why we need this. I'll finish it off here and say thank you for listening. Thank you for getting involved when you have. And guys, if you really could drop your predictions in the comments after this stream has gone live or after this recording has been given, that would be really, really great. And if you could like, share, subscribe and all that good stuff. I'm just also reading now, my phone's just popped up to tell me that John Motson has passed away, which is incredibly sad news. So thoughts and prayers go out to his family, and that's shocking. So RIP to him, and also all the other stuff that's going on right now in the world. That's why football can be such a great distraction. So thank you for listening to me for the last 40 minutes. And I'll see you all next